I've got Emilia Parry with me, and I've asked Emilia to come along to share with us the ministry that she's involved in, which is called Flourish. And I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm going to ask you, Emilia, if you can share. So welcome, and just share with us a little bit about yourself and the work that you're involved in with Flourish. Can you?
Yeah, no problem. So like you said, my name is Emilia, and I work for Bethel Baptist Church in Pontyclun, and I've been here for about a year now. I live locally, but I'm originally from Aberdeen, Cynon Valley, so that's where kind of I grew up and went to church and everything. But I got married in September, so I'm based here now, live here, really enjoying it so far. But as you said, my work primarily and my ministry is the Flourish Project, and it's linked to our youth ministry at Bethel. But what it is a mental health and wellbeing project.
Brilliant.
So it's run for 8 weeks in local schools. So it's rotational. So you'll run it for 8 weeks with a certain group of young people, and then once they graduate from the project, you restart then with another group. And
over 8 weeks. Over 8 weeks. Yeah.
8 weeks. Yeah.
Lovely. So, with regard to the vision of it, what's the vision? I think you've touched on it, to be fair, with it to help with mental health. What is the vision? What's behind it? What's the heart? What's it trying to achieve?
Yeah, so the vision of Flourish is, or the tagline, I guess, is equipping young people to be all that they were created to be. And I think the project acknowledges that young people struggle a lot with their well-being and their mental health. And from my experience, sometimes it's not from a lack of understanding that they're struggling with it, but from a lack of language, of being able to actually express how they're feeling and what they're struggling with. And what I found the project offers is it gives them words and language to put to how they're feeling. So, for example, if we're talking about low self-esteem or negative beliefs or negative self-talk, you can see kind of a light bulb moment with like, oh, I do that, or that's the thing that I struggle with, but they just haven't been given the language to express it yet. And I think that's been one of the most important things is seeing young people make that connection between, oh, that's how I feel and that's what it's called. And
wow, that's really powerful. That's really powerful, because I'm just thinking that it's giving them the language, but I think also it's probably saying to them, oh, I'm not unusual, because people understand who I am and how I feel.
Yeah.
That's very, very powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with regard to the practical side of things, you say it's an 8-week thing, an 8-week course. Would you call it a course?
Yeah, course, project, any of the above, really.
Yeah, okay, because the term course probably puts kids off, doesn't it, sometimes? But yeah, let's call it a project.
Okay.
So it's an 8-week project. How does it work out in practice in that 8 weeks? Can you share with us?
Yes, so there's a focus or topic for each week. So every week we'll look at a specific thing. And so week 1 is like an introduction to what the project is, and each session is sandwiched with activities. So we'll talk about something, then there'll be activity to reinforce it and something for them to take home. And the aim of it is that they practice like what we're talking about in that session. So for example, week 2 is all about beliefs. And we do this activity where we talk about maybe the negative beliefs we have about ourselves and how that could impact us. And we don't always share our negative beliefs, but we write them down on a post-it paper, and then we scrumple them up and dump them through a basketball hoop into the bin, and almost doing like a physical demonstration of like, I'm deciding that this negative belief isn't going to have any hold on me any longer. And I'm telling my brain that I'm physically putting it in the bin. And I think that's really powerful, in that every session is a reinforcement and a physical thing that we do to make sure that the young people are taking what we're talking about on board there and then. So yeah, as I said, week 2 then is beliefs, and then week 3 is mindset. So we're talking about the importance of having a good and healthy mindset and the quality of our thoughts. And week 4 is social media, because that's a very important topic for young people at the moment. And what's interesting about this session is we're not so much talking about stopping using social media, because if you ask a young person to stop using social media, you're asking them to cut off a lot of their community ties.
Right.
Because a lot of their community is alive through social media. So if I ask them to stop using their platforms, I'm asking them to isolate themselves from their friendship groups.
Wow,
Even a
yeah,
lot
it's
of
big.
school, even a lot of school stuff. Schools will use things like Teams and class charts now, which is essentially a social network. It's just not one that probably children enjoy, but it is a social network. And homework and behavior and everything is posted on there. And so we can't ask young people to stop using it, but we can help them to understand a way to use it more positively and more healthily. And that it is a great way to express who we are, social media is, but we have to have boundaries in place that allow us to exist healthily online and safely. So that session is more about using social media safely, but also still having fun with it. But it doesn't define who we are.
Because it's a big issue, isn't it? Social media for kids in particular. Yeah, it's a big issue, but we won't go into that. So in what ways are you seeing this benefiting children? Because you're seeing the benefits of it, I'm sure. So in what ways are you seeing that benefit?
I think the relationships that we get to build with young people is one of the key benefits. And even when young people graduate from the project, because we're consistently in their school, they come back to see us and to speak with us and everything, and just to check in, and they let us know how they're doing and stuff. And I think that is it's a small thing, but it's also a really big thing at the same time, that we're able to have really sustainable relationships with young people that are not a part of our church yet. And in other ways, some of them have become part of our youth group in church since taking part in the Flourish Project. And I think that's something we can brush over. But actually, that's huge, and is something that we are really proud of, is that from running an 8-week project and building up relationships with young people, they have taken the decision themselves to come to youth on a Friday and to consistently come now for over a year.
Gosh.
And they're on that journey, and they are learning about Jesus, and they are becoming part of a community where they know that they are loved and that they belong. And we've had a group that have been coming for the past year from school, and we don't do anything drastic, so to speak. We just love the fact that they're there and they come consistently and they want to be a part of it, and they know that they're a part of a group of people now where they belong, and they didn't have that before. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that they want to feel like they belong somewhere, like we all do. Like we all have that desire to belong and to feel like we are truly accepted as we are. And that's what Jesus teaches us, that like he accepts us as we are, and he doesn't leave us as we are. He always calls us to change, and we are changed through him, but he accepts us as we are. And I think that's been really powerful to see over the past years, young people realizing, like, I can turn up here as I am, and I'm not going to be questioned about it. And some probably it won't even be mentioned of like why I'm different, or people won't pick up on the things that I don't like about myself.
Gosh,
And
brilliant, powerful. Powerful. Yeah.
And we've got stories of like bullying and things where like bullies kind of take a step back from the people that they were bullying after taking part in the project, which is like wild for me to understand. But there was a young person that took part in the project, and they were really reserved and would kind of keep their head down whenever they were asked a question. And as the project went on, they got more and more confident, and that in itself was amazing to see. And they started coming to youth now and again, and that was amazing to catch up with them, like after they'd done the project and things. And I hadn't seen them for a few weeks, and I checked in with one of their teachers in school, like, how is this young person doing? Like, are they doing okay? And she said how well this young person is doing in school now, in terms of subjects, like a high performing student in all their subjects.
Gosh.
And even noted that they used to be heavily bullied, but now the bullies don't even say anything to them because they get no satisfaction. And the teacher said that the young person is so confident in themselves that they just take a step back because they don't get what they want from that person anymore. So the bullies literally are just like, oh, I better not bother. And just because of how confident that person is now.
Yeah. So you're seeing really positive results of,
Yeah,
of
really.
this program, obviously. I think, let me just clarify with you. I think I'm right in saying this, that obviously this ministry is, you're helping people, you're helping kids in the schools. Okay.
Mm.
Now, you're not using this ministry as a means of, oh, we'll get these kids to our youth group. You're not
No.
doing that. You're there to help the kids in school. But
Yeah.
if the kids want to take it that step further, and that's their choice, obviously, then the youth group and the youth work that you do in Bethel is there for them. And but they've already connected with you, and they've already recognized, hang on, these guys don't judge me. They're here to love me, and they're here to help me. So am I right to think that that's the way, that's the way that it works, really?
Yeah, definitely. Like, Flourish isn't inherently evangelistic. It's a proven project that is designed to improve mental health and well-being. And that's the reason why we do it, is because we see that young people in our community are struggling with their well-being and their mental health. And we believe that we are called to be Jesus's hands and feet. And this is an area that I believe that Jesus would want me to be his hands and feet, and an area that I feel called to, that I feel passionate about, and that I can even acknowledge in my own life. If I had something like this when I was 15, it would have saved me a lot of time as a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old if I'd had this information and this help then. And that's the reason why we do it, because we just see that gap and that hurt in our society and in our communities. And absolutely, there will always be an open invite to youth and to the events that we do, because we want to connect with young people, and that's the reason why we do youth ministry in the first place. But we're not in the schools for that purpose.
Yeah, that's really, really important for people to understand that. Yeah. It's really important, because it's a standalone ministry, and if that's all the kids want to engage with, which is the school, obviously you're happy to give that time. But then if they want to step into the youth work as well, then then that's brilliant.
So how it normally works is that we're in contact with heads of year in the secondary schools,
Right.
and heads of year will select groups of roughly 10 to 15 students at a time to take part in the project. And even though a student is selected, they normally encourage them to come to one session, and then they can decide if they want to continue for the full 8 weeks then.
Brilliant.
And in some schools, the aim is for like a whole year group to go through or for the whole year group at least to be selected to go through the project in a year. And then it's up to the pupils and the parents to a degree if they want to do the full project or not. And especially with a project of this nature, it's only quote unquote successful if you want to be there. Because if you don't want to be there, then you're not really going to do his job, because you need to engage in the content to get the purpose out of the content, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you find that parents, do parents need to give consent for their kids to be on this? That's the first question. And are they supportive of it in general?
Yeah, I'd say in general, parents are really supportive, because they can acknowledge that it's something that their child would benefit from. And I think sometimes these are difficult things to talk about, and young people don't always want to talk to their parents about everything. And not because the parent is a bad parent, but because they just don't want to talk to parents about everything that's going on in their lives. And so generally, we have a really positive response from parents. In terms of parents giving consent, that tends to vary by school. So we abide by each school's safeguarding protocols and how they want to approach the project. So every school does it in a different way. And some schools send consent forms home. Other schools just send like information home, just to say, like, by the way, your child has the opportunity to take part in this project. It's optional, but they don't need like signed consent. Whereas other schools would ask for it. I think it just depends on what they feel is most comfortable for them as a school. But then when we start the project, we also send out newsletters to the parents of the young people that are on the project. So every week I just write a newsletter with the topics that we've covered that week, what type of things we were talking about, and like some actionable things at the bottom of the newsletter. So it like includes parents in what we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
And no, I believe that the content will be helpful for parents as well. Like when I did the training to run Flourish, it benefited me more than it qualified me. It was helpful. And so I'm hoping and believe that that newsletter will have a similar effect on parents and guardians as well, that they won't just know that like this is what we're talking about in the room and have that security and insurance, but also that they would benefit from it as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I'm sure for this to be successful, you need the head teachers, the head of year teachers on board, don't you? I would think. Is that what you're finding, that the schools are embracing this, or does it vary from school to school, or do some schools see it as, oh, not another thing we have to do, and then other schools go, yeah, we need this? So what's your experience as far as it being accepted, received in schools? What's your experience?
Yeah, I'd say there's a spectrum of it being received and like accepted, as you said. Then some schools really accept it and run with it, and other schools can acknowledge that they need it, and maybe there's less interaction from schools. But at the moment, well-being is one of the 4 objectives of the Welsh curriculum.
Okay.
So every school has to be providing well-being support.
Oh,
And
right. Okay.
schools who have high budgets or more money, then they're able to employ more staff to do that. But then for other schools, that job of heading up well-being could just be given to a teacher that's, I don't know, a history teacher, for example, and it's just their job to head up well-being because they haven't got capacity to run any more stuff. And so for a lot of schools, us coming in and being able to say, we can provide well-being support for a fraction of the time and effort that it would take for you to do it is a massive help to the school. And we're providing support and a service somewhere where they really need it, just for the school to be functioning as it's being asked to function. And so I'd say that's probably why we're having a really positive response at the moment, is because schools have to provide wellbeing support and they know that it's essential. They just haven't got capacity to do it as they are. And so us coming in does really help. And even schools that do have wellbeing departments, they are so overrun by day-to-day stuff that young people come into school with that they haven't got capacity to run projects or check in with students like on a weekly basis, because there's so much daily stuff that comes in. And so I'd say we have a really positive response because we're meeting a direct need. It's not like, oh, here's something new, an extra that we can add, but it's more like, here's something new that's going to fit a gap that you have in your school. And we want to do it because we're a part of this community and we believe that we're here to serve it. So we have teachers commenting on like how much pupils enjoyed it or how much behavior has changed in pupils like since they've been taking part in the project. But we also collect stats from week 1 to the project as well. So we have 3 questionnaires that the young people complete on week 1, and their scores are put into a spreadsheet, and then we do the same questionnaires on week 8, and then we measure the percentage difference then in the scores. So it's anonymized and it's put into an average. So if I have a group of, say I have 5 groups of 10 young people in a school, then that will all be put into one average of increased self-esteem, increased emotional well-being, and increased happiness. And so as well as the teachers seeing like physical changes in behavior and personalities and how young people behave in school, they also have statistical evidence of how their well-being, their self-esteem, and their happiness has improved in that 8 weeks as well. And normally, sometimes we see increases of like 50% in happiness. And now, if you were 50% happier than you are now, it'd probably be quite scary, wouldn't it? Like, I can't imagine like 50% happier in just 8 weeks. So even like 10% improvement in self-esteem 8 weeks from now, that's enough to like change your life. And what we're trying to measure now is how we sustain that like post post the project.
But one of the things is youth group, isn't it? Really,
Exactly.
you know, that we know that because that offers, you know, a hope, not just for this life, but for eternity. So I would imagine that there will be some challenges that you face with this ministry. What are sort of the challenges that you face, without going into, you know, too much detail? But what are the challenges? What are the general challenges that you face?
We're normally in a room that's not a classroom. It could be like a staff training room or like a meeting room. So we're normally in a room that they're not familiar with someone that they've never met before. So they're a bit wary. And then by week 3, they're a bit more confident with me and they trust me a bit more. And in a room of that size, you'd expect the life experiences to be lower because it's only 10 students. But in a room of that size, you could have like 3 young people that have lost a parent, or 3 people whose housing situation has just drastically changed, where they're not living with the guardians they were living with, or they have been living with for the past few years. Or there could be another young person where they've just gone through a loss in the family, and each person in that room will have something like that. So I guess the challenge is giving them equal time to be able to express that and work through that with them. And also acknowledging that I am not their counselor in that moment either. So it's trying to find that balance of like, they trust me and they want to share this, they want to work through this, which is really positive and what the project is for. But then I have an hour a week with them. So that's like, what, 5 minutes, just over 5 minutes per student, if it's 10 plus students in a room. So I guess that's the biggest challenge, is you always think there's more time that you should give.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's establishing those boundaries, I guess, as well.
Yeah. So I can understand that somebody like yourself, who's got a heart of compassion and a heart of kindness and mercy, to want to help. That's why you're in this ministry, is because you've got that heart, and that all these sort of issues are presented before you, and that you've got that limited time to be able to help, even though the help that you do give in that time is absolutely vital and critical, that you'd want to give more help. And I can imagine why that would be challenging for you. So yeah, but you know, well done for doing the difference that you are doing, even though you'd like more time with you know, with a group and with each individual student. Is there anything else that you want to share before we bring this to a close? Anything else that it's important for people to understand regarding Flourish and regarding this work? Is there anything?
Yeah, I'd say that Flourish isn't like a fix-all project. Just because young people go through this project, it doesn't mean that their well-being and their mental health is fixed forever and that they'll never encounter anything hard or difficult for the rest of their lives. But what it is equipping young people with tools and techniques to support their well-being on a daily basis, and to also help others on a daily basis as well. Because once we can support ourselves, we're in a much better position to support others. Like Jesus even tells us to love others as we love ourselves. So we have to be able to do that first before we can efficiently help others. And that's what Flourish is. It's not like a one tick box, but it's equipping young people and giving them a platform to set them up for their future, because we believe that each young person does have a really important and purposeful future. And this is what this project is meant to do, is to start, I guess, laying the foundation for that, so they can, number one, acknowledge that they have a future, and number two, like, what do they want to do with it? What are they good at? What do they enjoy doing? And how can they use that in a positive way to impact people in a positive way? And I'd say that's one of the main differences with this project, and maybe other well-being tips or work, is that it's not inward looking, but it's outward looking. So it's, how can I sustain my well-being and my mental well-being, but also how can I be that person for someone else? And I think that's one of the key differences, and what we really want to teach on the project is that
Brilliant.
it's not project me, but how can I embrace others and help others as well?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Listen, Emilia, thank you so much for taking the time. Okay. And this Flourish project was new to me. You've given, a great sort of overview of it, and I'm sure that some people will be in touch with you. I'm sure, because they have a heart for kids. They have a heart for youth. They just carry Jesus's heart to help. And so I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me if you get some people contacting you wanting some more information. So for now, Emilia, thank you very much, and carry on the good work. And thanks for giving me the time. Okay.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.